in the sterile hush of a Chicago family courtroom, where the air smelled of polished wood and faded hopes. I sat frozen at the defendant's table, my fingers digging into the armrests as my own daughter, Emily, stared daggers at me from the witness stand. Her voice cracked like thunder in the silence. She abandoned me the moment I got better, like I was some burden she couldn't wait to shake off. The judge's eyes narrowed in judgment. And across the room, my ex-husband Mark wore that smug mask of false concern, his hand on Emily's shoulder like a puppet master's grip. But deep in the shadows at the back, our old family doctor shifted uneasily, his face a storm cloud ready to break. This wasn't just about an inheritance fight, it was the detonation of a secret I'd buried for 15 years. A choice born from love that had twisted into a weapon of betrayal. The room felt smaller with every word Emily spoke, her testimony weaving a noose around my neck. She was 23 now, sharp and unyielding, with the same fierce green eyes I'd passed down to her like mine, but hardened by years of poison. I was 8 when the leukemia hit, she said, her voice trembling with raw hurt, the kind that festers in the quiet nights. Chemo after chemo. I was wasting away in that hospital bed, tubes snaking everywhere. And she was there. Until she wasn't. The courtroom leaned in, hungry for the drama, as she painted me as the villain, the mother who vanished right after the bone marrow transplant that saved her life. The day I woke up healthy, it was like I repulsed her. She pulled away, cold as ice. Dad fought for custody, and she didn't even show up to the hearings. Birthdays? Forgotten. Graduations? Empty seats. She let me believe I wasn't worth her time. Her words landed like punches, each one echoing the guilt I'd swallowed whole. I wanted to scream, to shatter the silence with the truth. But I couldn't. Not yet. The promise I'd made to myself, to the doctors, held me captive. A chain forged from a mother's desperate love. Mark, my ex, the architect of this nightmare, sat there orchestrating it all. He'd always been the charmer, a successful real estate broker in the Windy City, with his tailored suits and easy smiles that hit a heart as calculating as a spreadsheet. Our marriage had cracked under the weight of Emily's illness, his impatience with the mess of hospital visits and endless bills clashing with my unyielding devotion. But when the doctors confirmed I was a perfect match for the transplant, despite carrying the genetic marker that might have contributed to her leukemia, I didn't hesitate. Anonymous donor, I insisted that night in our dimly lit kitchen, my voice a whisper over the hum of the fridge. She can never know it's me. Mark. I won't let her grow up feeling indebted. Like every hug is a repayment. He nodded then, his eyes gleaming with what I mistook for understanding. You're right, Laura. It's for her own good. And during recovery, maybe keep some distance. Emotional stress could set her back. I agreed, blinded by exhaustion and fear, not seeing how he'd turn my sacrifice into his gain. That distance started small, a missed bedtime story here, a skipped doctor's appointment there, all under the guise of giving Emily space to heal without suspicion. But Mark widened it like a fault line, whispering lies into her ear over the years. Your mom's too busy with her career, he'd say, as I buried myself in my job as a social worker, helping other families while my own crumbled. He became the hero dad, the one at every soccer game and parent-teacher conference, while I faded into the background, my heart breaking with every unanswered call. The divorce came a year after the transplant. Ugly and one-sided, he painted me as unstable, unfit. And I didn't fight back, terrified that contesting custody would risk exposing the secret. Let her have a normal life, I told myself, even as the loneliness gnawed at me like a slow poison. But Mark? He reveled in it, using my silence to fuel Emily's resentment, turning her against me for his ultimate prize, control over my late parents' estate. A modest inheritance from their old brownstone in Lincoln Park that he'd always coveted. Now, in this courtroom battle he'd engineered, the stakes were laid bare. The will left everything to me, with a provision for Emily only if our family remained united, a clause Mark twisted to claim I had abandoned her, disqualifying me. Emily's testimony was his crowning blow, her pain so genuine it cut deeper than any knife. As she stepped down, wiping tears, she shot me a look of pure betrayal. You were never there when I needed you most. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s with lines etched from too many broken families, sighed heavily. This is a tragic case, she began, her tone laced with disapproval aimed squarely at me. My lawyer, bound by my instructions not to reveal the transplant, fumbled through a weak defense about legal technicalities, making me seem even more detached. Mark's smirk grew. He thought he'd won. His decade-long manipulation paying off in cold cash and final revenge for the marriage he'd always resented. But fate has a way of unraveling even the tightest knots. In the back row sat Dr. Reynolds, our family's oncologist from those dark days, subpoenaed as a neutral witness to confirm Emily's medical history. He'd aged, his hair grayer, but his eyes burned with the fire of a man who'd seen too much suffering. As Mark's lawyer wrapped up with a theatrical flourish, this woman chose indifference over her own flesh and blood. Dr. Reynolds couldn't hold back. He rose, his chair scraping like a gunshot in the quiet room. Your Honor, he boomed, his voice trembling not with fear but with fury. I can't sit here and let this lie stand. What you've heard is a distortion, a betrayal of the worst kind. The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The judge banged her gavel. Doctor, you've testified. This is out of order. But he pressed on, striding forward like a man on a mission. I swore an oath to heal, not to enable deceit. And today, that oath demands the truth, sworn in again amid objections. Dr. Reynolds didn't just testify, he unraveled the web. He started slow, drawing the room into the nightmare of Emily's diagnosis, the endless tests, the chemo that left her bald and frail, the despair when no donor appeared. We were losing her, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper that forced everyone to lean in. Then, the miracle, an anonymous match. Perfect in every way. But the donor insisted on secrecy, to spare the child the burden of gratitude, to let her live unshadowed by obligation. He paused, letting the tension build like a storm cloud, then locked eyes with Emily. That donor wasn't some stranger. It was your mother, Laura. She gave you her bone marrow, risked her own health, and chose silence so you could be free. The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Emily gasped, her world fracturing, Mark's face drained of color, his empire of lies collapsing. The courtroom dissolved into chaos, gasps, whispers, the judge demanding order. Emily turned to Mark, her voice a shattered whisper. You knew? All those years, feeding me stories of her neglect. You knew, he stammered. I was protecting you, sweetie, but it rang hollow, his charm cracking under the weight of exposure. The judge, her expression shifting from scorn to awe as she reviewed the medical records Dr. Reynolds produced, dismissed the case with prejudice. Mr. Thompson, she snarled at Mark. Your manipulation is despicable, a father's love twisted into poison for greed. Get out. But the real explosion was in Emily's eyes, the dawning horror of betrayal, the psychological wreckage of a childhood built on sand. She stood, shaking him off, her rage a quiet inferno. You didn't protect me, you weaponized me. We're done. As the room emptied, Emily approached me, her steps hesitant, like crossing a minefield of emotions. "Why hide it?" she asked, voice breaking. I met her gaze, tears blurring my vision. "Because love isn't a ledger, Emily. I didn't want you chained to thank yous for the rest of your life. I wanted you to fly free, even if it meant I stayed grounded in the shadows." The truth hung between us, heavy with the cost, 15 years of my isolation. Her misplaced hatred, Mark's ruinous revenge. We didn't embrace, not yet. The wounds were too fresh, the trust too fragile. But in that moment, as we walked out into the biting Chicago wind, something shifted. Coffee turned to conversations, stilted at first, laced with the ache of lost time. "Tell me about the transplant," she'd ask one day, her voice soft with newfound vulnerability. "It hurt like hell, I'd admit. But losing you hurt more. Healing wasn't a fairy tale, it was gritty. American grit, therapy sessions in stuffy offices, awkward family dinners where silence spoke volumes." Mark faded into irrelevance, his calls ignored, his life a hollow echo of the control he'd craved. The price of my choice haunted us, the psychological scars, the what-ifs that whispered in quiet moments. Emily grappled with guilt, I with regret. But we pushed forward, rebuilding on honesty. A year later, at her college graduation in a sunlit auditorium, she sought me out in the crowd, her smile a bridge across the chasm. "Thanks, Mom, for everything," she said. "Not as debt, but as choice." We'd paid dearly for our silences and betrayals. But in the end, the truth didn't just expose the rot, it planted seeds for something real, something enduring. The journey of revenge? It wasn't mine or Mark's, it was life's quiet reckoning, where love, scarred and resilient, claimed the final word.